loving someone you don't like. And we preference this solely to relationships. Of being in a relationship with someone that you love that you can't stand. And I've been seeing a lot of this. I've seen a lot of this growing up, first of all, with aunts and uncles who will be in these dysfunctional relationships and crazy relationships, toxic. And then now it has transferred over into social media where we see all these toxic relationships where they're together, they probably cheating on each other, beating on each other. And it's like, man, why are y'all together? You know, if y'all, but it's like, the next minute they in love, then next 2 weeks they at odds. And he the worst thing and she the worst thing ever. So like this is one we want to dive into, specifically this topic. And first of all, I want to preface this. Can you be in love with someone that you don't like? We're going to dive deep into it tonight.
To an extent you can.
Give your answer.
Yeah, to an extent you can. Now, as far as how deep their love goes, I think liking a person does play a part into it. But yeah, I think for marriage, you have to like who you love, because forever is a long time, or until death do you part is a long time. So,
but I think his question also was in love. There's a difference between loving somebody and being in love. Right. So yeah, I'm gonna have to say no for that one. I don't think you can be in love with somebody and not like them. Okay. Well, I don't know. I just don't think you can. I think you can like have moments where you don't like them at a certain point, but I don't think you can go every day with being in love with somebody but genuinely don't like them. Because then why are you with them?
No, that's a fact.
You gotta like something about your spouse. I mean,
Yeah.
Now loving, I think you can love somebody and not like them, but being in love, I don't think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, I say being in love with someone and not being able to like them. I mean, it's kind of like what you said. It's that like is gonna change. You're not always, just depending on if there's a disagreement or if they do something like we just did, like pet peeves and stuff like that. Hitting buttons. Once you with someone for so long, their buttons. When to push them, how to push them, and stuff like that. Doing that stuff is stuff that the other person may not like, and they may not like you, for an hour or a day, a few minutes, few seconds, whatever it is, so I do think that you can be in love and not like them sometimes, but if you just not liking them all the time, then no.
So
you gotta like them.
What about the toxic relationships?
Right.
This is just what it is. It's just toxic. They don't actually love that
person. They don't know what love is.
Yeah.
So John said they don't know what love is.
I'm gonna say, well, first of all, before we can get to love, we got to start with like. I gotta first like something about you to even say that, okay, I'm in love with you and all this, frilly rainbows and sunshine loveliness. You gotta first like something about them.
So
you can't just skip to like, in love with you. I don't like nothing about you. Don't like your personality. Don't like the way you look. Don't like nothing.
We're gonna come back to that. Okay, Sade.
Well, sometimes the issue is that the male or the female like the money.
I was finna. Then why are they in a relationship in the first place?
But then you still don't love that person. You love that money.
Exactly, and that could grow into, quote, being in love with them because they provide for you all the time. You don't have to work.
But are you in love because of the things that they can do for you though?
Exactly. Sometimes people are in love because Bobby or whoever can provide for me.
So the foundation is now where we are now, pertaining to this question. What is the foundation of your relationship?
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
That's the $1 million question.
Now this is where it has led us. The foundation of your relationship. And I often say, what your relationship is built on is what is going to end it.
All right.
Yeah.
If your relationship built on money, if it's built on material things, that's what's gonna end it.
Turn the hall light on. Go get some.
If your relationship is not built on love and the individual person itself, he or she, then it's not gonna last.
Right.
Yep.
Because if you're not into the person for who that person is and generally are, then you're not gonna last, and that's why the divorce rates are so high.
Unless the money lasts, I guess.
I mean, but believe it or not, money gets old. Look at Hollywood.
That's true.
That's true.
Just old.
There's only so many cars you can drive. There's only so many houses you can live in.
I mean, if they want to give me a couple of them,
like you see people talking about, oh, what kind of money he got? What kind of money he got?
Yeah.
Like, you know, they just there. Once I get my bag, I'm looking for the next guy.
Right.
You know, we see it in Hollywood all the time. We see all these celebrities and rich people, they getting divorced, and we like, man, what's going on? This person worth 50 million, you know, this person worth this and that. It's like, it don't matter, you know. And people often say, or the cliche, oh, money ain't the all be all. And then people say, oh man, well, I believe it is, and say, well, rich people showing you that it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, they showing you that it's not, because Will Smith and even Justin Bieber, Justin Bieber got a song pretty much. And then Will Smith recently, not too long ago, he did an interview, about imagine having all the money, and then finding God. He was just in a predicament to where he would wish that everybody could have everything that they want, and realize that it's not what they think it is.
That's good.
And like I said, Justin Bieber, he had a song, has a song, talking about, he had everything and nobody was listening. Like, all of that stuff did not bring that comfort, that love, that, security, that happiness, and a lot of people, that's what they chase after, not knowing that there's people who have it all and then it's not enough.
That's powerful you said that, because I believe that everyone works everything but their relationship. They work a job, they work everything, business opportunities, relationships. They work everything but their relationship, but their spouse. Like, you do not work on you and your spouse. It's just like having a relationship with God. If you don't work on your relationship with God, it ain't gonna be nothing.
Yeah.
And then when you turn to God, like, God, I need you. God, like, huh?
Who are you?
I think that's true. I think too, that's why you see so many people, once the kids leave, they don't even know who their spouse is.
For sure.
They're like roommates. They're like, who are you again? Who did I be? Now that the kids are gone,
For sure.
I have to relearn you now. I have to redate you now.
Kurt Franklin said that. He said that. He said that for sure. That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
That's real talk.
That's really it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of couples, man. Their kids become their number one focus, and that should never be the case when you're married.
And then sometimes people don't know.
Yeah, and so like you said, when the house is empty,
you don't even know who you're living with.
You don't know who you're living with, and a lot of times it ends up in divorce, or you see them old bitter couples.
Well, it flips the question back around. Do I like you that much?
Yep.
Ooh.
I ain't never have to really deal with you this much. I've been covered with responsibility. Now that responsibility has left, do I really like you like that? This is why this question came up.
Well, that, and then a lot of times I don't think people know how to work on a relationship. Like you said, oh, my bad. I was talking there. So I don't think a lot of people know how to work on a relationship. You say people work on a job, they work at their business. It's like, okay, we have a specific goal that needs to be met. So, I know this is what I have to do. But in relationships, a lot of times people don't think that, okay, they don't think that, there is a way to work on it. It's like, okay, we just together, and, or they don't think that they have a problem. So if they don't think they have a problem with themselves, they're not going to work on it. So they're just going to go about their day or go about their relationship the same because they don't think they're a problem.
I also think too.
Go ahead,
I was going to say, I think sometimes when issues arise, some couples don't like to get to the root of the problem. They keep it surface level. So what they do is they just keep masking it every time but they never get to the root of the problem. So sometimes when that problem arises again, it ends up in divorce because y'all never tackled it. Y'all just kept putting band-aids over it. You can't keep putting band-aids over it. You know, sometimes you have to have those uncomfortable conversations, and they don't have that, you know. So it's
what happens when you have one spouse, they cover up what's going on and they just keep putting it to the back burner, and then the other spouse is coming forefront with their problems, and then now this spouse unloads on this spouse of all the stuff they've been holding on to that this spouse does. And so instead of working out the problem that this spouse brought to this spouse, what about all the stuff that you do? Look at this stuff, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well,
isn't that kind of narcissistic?
It is very narcissistic.
You
know, because narcissistic people hate to take accountability.
Yeah.
So I would do anything to not take accountability. I'm gonna bring up all your bones in your closet
instead of
addressing the problem you brought to me. Because if what you was doing was really a problem, I should have really already hashed this out with you.
Right.
But it wasn't a problem. I was just saving it for ammo.
Yeah, there you go.
That's good. That's good.
So for people that want to work on their relationship but don't know how, like what kind of things do y'all suggest that they do? Like we wanted to work on our relationship, like what do we do?
Well, I suggest the number one thing in relationships is being able to communicate.
Exactly. I was gonna say the same thing.
I was gonna say that, yeah.
Like that's the number one thing that fails relationships.
People say like communicate, but you know, a lot of times people don't know how to communicate with their spouse. Like, I don't know what makes you hear me. And so sometimes that's what like some of these people's problems that they have. Like, you know, some people that I talk to, they be like, they're trying to communicate with their spouse. They're trying to bring them these issues, but it's like they keep hitting a brick wall. And so I think the first thing is like, yeah, you have to communicate, but you have to know like how that person receives information, how to give information as well. Because sometimes if I just come at you and verbally assault you and having verbal diarrhea, you know, you're not going to be receptive to what I'm saying.
This is the biggest problem. And I said this a while ago. How you build your relationship is what's going to cause it to fail. If you build your relationship and you guys aren't communicating before you got married, and you think that you're going to say I do, and then you're going to flip that switch, and then all of a sudden we just magically communicating, not going to work.
Yeah, so it's like the equivalent of a guy leading with his money. And so let's just say, for instance, you know, something happens and he loses the income or what he has that was getting him that money. 9 times out of 10, that relationship is going downhill, and it's going downhill fast. Or in the instance for a woman, she leads with her sex or what she can do in the bedroom, and something happens or her drive changes, or you know, whatever the case may be. If she leads with that and she can no longer do it the way that she was able to get him with that, it's going to go downhill.
Not even just that, it'll get old, like just like the money. It gets familiar. It's like, okay, it's only so many tricks she can pull before it's like, okay.
I mean, it comes down to desire. Do you want to make this work?
Yeah.
Flat out.
I think that's the thing. It's about communicating to understand. A lot of people say, oh, communicate. But if you're not able to relay a message to your partner, then how are you getting through them? And I think that's something that my husband and I, we've learned, because we have 2 different communication styles. And so we have to learn to communicate to understand, because the way I may deliver it is not the way he receives it. So I have to maybe change some wordings or the way I deliver it so he can understand. And I think that's why, like you said, Markeisha, so many times people communicate but don't know how to.
And on top of that, also knowing that, like she said, learning how to communicate in a way that the other person can receive it. So it's not communicating the way you yourself receive it, you know, because now you're putting that on them and they're not hearing it. Well, you know, this is how I understand. Well, they're not you, you know, so you have to be able to relay a message in a way that they're able to understand, So that way you can get past those things. And that's one of the key things when it comes down to communication and working on communication is learning how to relay a message to the other person for them to understand what it is you have to say. Sometimes you have to wait a little while. You know, they're not one of the people who's like, you know, let's talk about it right now. They one of the people like, hey, I need to calm down or I need to think about it and then we can come back. Yeah. But if you're pushing your way of, I want to talk about it right now, then they're never going to be receptive to it because they could still be in the heat of it. And even though your mechanism is to get it off your chest and now you're feeling better, this, that, and the third, to them, they're just getting hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. And now at the point, they just like, well, you know what? Just whatever.
Yeah. Kenny said, don't be selfish. Don't unburden yourself onto your spouse. Go ahead, Sade.
And I totally agree with Bria and Kendrick just said, but I think what a lot of couples need to learn is, and I think Daniel said it as well, communication does not start when you get married. It starts before you get married. You can't just like say Jonathan and I dated for whatever and get married and then we magically learn to communicate. That means I don't know how Jonathan receives communication and he doesn't know how I receive it. So I might just be like, Jonathan, we need to talk now. But he may, like Kendrick said, may need to take, hour break or even a couple of days. So you need to learn that before marriage. Communication is very important.
Yeah.
So does that speak back to really what's the word? It just slipped my mind. When you're dating or you're courting, vetting. It speaks to really vetting who you're pursuing or you're possibly considering for marriage. Where vetting is a very key component that a lot of people don't use to really learn your person. And which speaks to everyone today about communication, how they communicate. And then once you learn how they communicate, can you deal with that way of communicating with them? So I think
even being honest with yourself, like it's okay not to date a person that you can't talk to.
Right.
Yeah.
Like before you start dating, before you guys get married, when you guys are dating and courting each other, if you guys can't have a sound conversation,
right,
you guys don't need to be walking down the aisle.
No.
Literally.
Right.
If every conversation is a fight,
it's an argument. You don't need to be walking down the aisle. And trust me, please don't do this. I made this mistake. Please do not assume. Assumption kills.
Yeah.
Ask.
Please.
Yeah.
Yes, ask.
And comparison kills too.
Yeah.
Comparison kills.
Yes.
Do not do those things. Don't look at another relationship and think that they're supposed to be yours. And then don't assume that you know what your partner is thinking, or you just gonna put your thought process on your partner.
Yes. Yes.
So don't do that. That just kills.
And I think too, like with the assumptions, I feel like some people get into a marriage and let's say somebody has a disagreement, they sometimes shut down and they're like, well, my husband or my wife, they're supposed to know when I'm mad. They're supposed to know when I'm upset. It's like, but did you communicate, honey?
That's like, stupidity. That's a stupidity.
It's because it's like, but you're expressing it through a selfish motive. You can't do that. You have to say, hey, I'm upset right now. I need to take 5 minutes. Or, he may be upset. Like, you can't assume that your spouse is supposed to know every single feeling about you. No, you have to express that. And I think so many people may have a hard time expressing their feelings and not knowing how to let people know so they can understand how to deal with you, if that makes sense.